Welcome to Ride On, episode 6. I'm James Gross, and I'm joined by my co-host, Julia Thane. How you doing, Julia?
James, I'm doing good. I'm actually kind of shocked we're on episode 6. This is becoming a real thing. We're almost wrapped with a season, you know? Like, if we get to 8 episodes, maybe 10, we've got season 1.
Oh, wow. Okay, what happens after season 1? Do we stop?
I don't know. We got to do a plot twist. Wow. We got to have some other hook for season 2. Maybe we change locations. We do it from Europe instead. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I will say the thing I'm most proud of is I was going to school the other day, dropping one of my kids off, and a parent dropping their kid off on a bike, actually, said that they watched the show and they really enjoyed it. I was like, wow, I was blown away by that. That was yeah, very famous. Very famous. They said they really like Julia, actually. I should be more specific. But I'm part of the team, so I'll take that. Well, we have an action-packed show today, including another guest, which I think our audience really appreciates. So we'll have a special guest on here later today as part of one of our segments. And to also just explain Ride On and the structure of the show real quickly, Julia and I cover topics of the week from the Micromobility Newsletter that comes out on Tuesday and Thursday. Everything from things like infrastructure and public policy around micromobility to, of course, all the amazing new vehicles and launches that are happening more and more, it seems like, based on our news cycle. We love it if you subscribe to the show, of course, as well as our newsletter, and leave us comments and tell us what you think, of course, which is really critical for us, just to kind of keep the community going. So with that, let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping, Julia. We've got some exciting news about the team at Micromobility actually going over to Europe, which is really cool, in a couple of weeks here. So just share my screen. We have a party coming up, actually. So the Micromobility Industries team is putting on an autonomy at the autonomy event, in Paris. Julia, have you ever been to the autonomy event in Paris?
I've never been to the autonomy event in Paris. I'm so jealous, though. I can't believe that I'm not going to be there.
I've never been to it either. I'm excited to go. I'll be going with a couple of colleagues from the team, and we've got a party sponsored by in partnership with Ascol, which is a really cool company out of Italy, which we're excited about. And then we've made it some real cool AI art here, trying to show the Micromobility logo, of course, in a Parisian setting, which is very exciting. And then one more, just really quick AI generated art, just so we don't scare anyone. Our party is going to have a certain theme to it. And this theme is, I think us doing our best to have some fun and have a fun night at Autonomy. Julia, could you guess what kind of theme this will be based on this image I've created?
You mean by the image that says Tiki Bar? Yeah, I would have imagined that it's a tiki bar.
Hey, you would be right. Amazing. And Julia, how do you feel about us having a party at a tiki bar in Paris?
Without me? Yeah, no, I don't feel good about it. That was one of those days where it's really set me up for success there. No, I honestly think it's going to be an amazing party. I like how the invitation said 6:30 until late. I'm sure you all are going to be there very, very late. And it seems like right on brand to be Micromobility in Paris at a tiki bar at an event that's focused on autonomy. So very, very jealous not to be there, but looks like y'all are gonna have a great time.
Yeah, Julia, we're gonna be there. We're gonna miss you. We're gonna do our best to represent you though while we're there. So what would Julia do at a tiki bar is something.
Yeah, not drink a tiki drink. Just get something really not tiki, and then that would be me.
Well, we're going to be cruising around a lot of Micromobility vehicles afterwards, I think.
Okay, that would be
great. We're going to be very responsible at the Tiki Bar party with Ascol. Okay. One other housekeeping note, Julia, is actually announcing our winner of the RadRunner 3+, which, again, comes out of our Ride On episode 5 with Mike Radenbaugh, the founder and chairman of Rad Power Bikes. This was an awesome episode. We got a lot of comments. So it's hard to choose a winner, but we did. And the winner actually goes to Hubert Ava for their comment about needing their bike for riding actually to school and where they're a student at Ohio University, and also they had some good comments for Mike and the team that they can answer. One of them about turn signals, which I think is a very good question, and something I think to tease out, we'll talk a little bit about today with another vehicle manufacturing company. So congratulations to Hubert Aba. Please reach out to us at hello@micromobility.io. That's once again our email, hello@micromobility.io, to receive your prize. So with that, that's the housekeeping. And I will turn it over to Julia to kick off for the news of the day.
James, I can't go an episode without talking about Denver. And fortunately for me, some of the news this week includes Denver. There's a study from Denver out by Ride Report, by the Climate Action Office, People for Bikes, my organization, Rocky Mountain Institute, and Bicycle Colorado, that basically starts to digest some of the information, some of the data that they collected during the Denver eBike voucher program's first year in existence. What they're finding is really, really interesting, James. They found that 71% of people who bought an electric bike as part of the city's voucher program drove less as a result. So there's actually a correlation or a causation between having an e-bike and driving less. They found that there were about $1 million in cumulative annual savings to the individual or to the individuals who got these e-bike vouchers, about 2,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions avoided per year, and 67% of the program funding, and I think this is really interesting, went to income qualified residents. So overall, James, I think what you're seeing from the numbers is that micromobility subsidies are really important, and they're important because they reduce car usage. They're an actual climate action tool. And moreover, they're an equitable climate action tool. The way that this was designed really allowed for a broader set of individuals to access the program itself. So, James, when you see success like this, what do you do with it?
You do more of it.
You do more of it. And that brings
reflexive, whatever that word would be.
Magnified, scaled. And James, that's actually the perfect segue into the next story of the week, which is probably the biggest story, or at least the biggest story for us. And that is that Micromobility Industries has just launched a groundbreaking new tool, and it's called the Micromobility Global Incentives and Subsidies Tracker. And we'll make sure to drop the link in the comments so that you all have it. It is not accurately reflected on this slide, I have to say, because it is way, way more beautiful than this. And it's very dynamic, very interactive. The point of it is that it's a first of its kind database tracking government incentives and subsidies for small electric vehicles worldwide. It's got up-to-date information on 400 plus government incentives in 30 plus countries, which is actually pretty nuts. And it allows people to easily compare and contrast and select the best options for them. So, James, I know this was a huge lift, I think, to do, or maybe it wasn't, but, and I believe you were one of the people who just decided, like, let's get this information online. Let's put it in a slightly different user interface. Let's make it more accessible. So maybe you could tell us more about what was the inspiration, how are you seeing people interact with this already?
Yeah. And you did a great job there framing it. So thanks. This big shout out to the whole team at Micromobility Industries. I think you said it well. Like, what you find is there are clearly a lot of incentive programs actually out there. One of the biggest challenges, of course, is trying to collect them all. And one of the challenges I think both we're challenged by, as well as consumers are challenged by, or just regular everyday ordinary citizens, is a lot of these government websites are very hard to tackle, very hard to understand. Or that governments are not website designers by trade, I think, and digital products is not their forte necessarily. We're also dealing with a tremendous amount of just PDFs, right? So a lot of these incentive programs are actually in PDFs. And of course, a lot of these programs are in languages that we don't speak natively or read natively. And so we try to do our best to use some technology and to crowdsource it as much as we could to really just provide a simple interface that people can, of course, navigate and go through. Like any product, this is a very early stage of it. Where we want to go with it is make it something that, of course, anyone that's just interested can type in their zip code, can type in their country code, their city code, their county code, whatever it might be, and be able to see what might be offered for them in a way that they would understand it. Again, so trying to take some of the verboseness away from the way these incentive programs are promoted and laid out, and just making it simple to say, okay, I'm an individual, or I'm a business, or I'm an association, here are the incentives that I might be able to go for, and here's how I would actually how it actually qualify, whether it's a voucher, a pre-purchase, a post-purchase thing, and all that. So it's the beginning of hopefully what will become a standard for the industry. We launched it on Tuesday, and we've already gotten awesome feedback, as well as many more programs. So clearly we didn't have all the programs, so that's really good to see, but there's more programs that are out there that we just didn't know about. And then the other fun avalanche, and we've done a decent job, I think, of trying to sort them so far, is with the idea of what programs are just proposed. And so tracking that, and then being able to go from, oh, this is a proposed program to this is a live program. So for instance, we had one out of Tampa that's now just about to go live. That was proposed when we first started to index this. Actually, the first program, as far as I know, that's in Florida. So it's just really cool to see I think Florida's one of the largest states in America with their first incentive program. So just great. So yeah, we're really excited. Clearly a call to all of our audience. We did our best to track around the world. Europe clearly has a lot of programs, and some of the countries in Europe have a lot of programs, which is great. But then we have a lot of the globe that you'll see if you go to the website is not lit up. So we have, we have a program in India, we have a program in Indonesia, we have a program in, on just one program in the continent of Africa. We have no programs actually in, South America, no programs in Australia. So there's dark areas. And as far as I can tell, those areas are dark because there are no programs, but we could be wrong, or we hope to see, of course, legislation proposed to change that. And what you mentioned, Julia, and the work that your firm did as well with Ride Report, other people, is like these programs are really working. And they're fairly inexpensive in the grand scheme of things for the benefits they have. So I think we're going to see kind of an order of magnitude change here. So 400 programs, I think we go to 4,000 pretty soon. And until the federal governments get their acts together, I think that's going to be this continued sort of hacker mentality at the local level to just do smaller programs, which again are great, and we want to help people find them. So that's what the role of the site will be.
Yeah, and that's awesome, James. I mean, I was very excited to see it. I know we've talked a lot about incentives as one of the main things that can get butts in seats, and just dropping down those costs and making access to micromobility much more equitable, especially when you're talking about not just shared use, but private ownership. What's really interesting to me is, micromobility industries as a whole stays nonpartisan and out of advocacy. So I like that this is both an educational tool, it's a tool for consumers, like Ride Review is, where you're trying to find what micromobility device works for you. This is where you're trying to figure out not only what micromobility device works for you, but how to get it for a lower price. But I think also what you're saying, and what I hope folks will use this for, is to understand where and where not incentives programs are, and to use it as an advocacy tool as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe one final pitch, if I may, my pitch to the government and the people, legislation, my hope when they see the website is the programs that work well are the simplest to understand, are the ones that put up the least amount of barriers. You're seeing a lot of programs that get proposed that were clearly done inside of, closed room meetings where people kind of put on a board what they thought would, just cover every single little thing. And then when it comes out on, you actually have to put it out on paper. It's a mess. It's very hard to understand. I looked at over 400 incentives. A lot of incentives are just way too hard to understand, and they shouldn't be. And we know from the precedent of how car subsidies are done, for instance, they are very simple to understand and simple to win on. So that would be one thing. If I were to advocate, it would be make these programs simpler, make these less about signaling, make them more about getting butts on seats, because that's where you'll win ultimately. And so I think Denver's done a great job. I'm glad people continue to talk about it. And I hope we see that around the world.
Yeah. Well, I can envision in Horace's next presentation just a chart showing what the incentive amounts are. I mean, I'd love to have a frequency chart of just seeing whether folks are offering $1,500 a bike or $500 a bike. Like how are the incentive programs actually going, and or what amounts are they offering, and are they enough for that matter? So anyways, James, we could talk the entire episode just about this one story, but and the incentives tracker itself. But over to you to share some of the news that's going on in your world.
Yeah. So on my side, I want to talk a little bit about vehicles. So the first one I want to talk about is just a general theme I see that I think I'm getting really excited about. And this is an announcement actually out of Europe about Mochi, doing the first, actually adopting the first Schaeffler chainless drive. So I'm very excited about this idea. One, because it's like just a really cool concept, but also because it kind of like continues on this trend of like the micromobility vehicles are simpler to use, simpler to maintain, and just kind of are magic in a way, right? So what Schaeffler has developed is this, of course, non-mechanical movement between the pedal and the drive system with what they call their chainless drive. And Moki is the first cargo fleet management system that's going to actually put it into play. Why this matters, one, it's just maybe a very much better way to actually ride. But two, it's a really different way to think about maintenance, right? If you think about the componentry that goes into the chain between, of course, the pedal and the drive system and everything that needs to go on there. If you can start to strip that away, in many ways, it's a very magical way to ride and to maintain what you're doing. So I think this is a very cool concept. Of course, we've got to see it implemented and, see what these fleets like Moki do with it and how it works. But I remain like really positive on this. And, it's just, it again goes back to this idea of like, why would a company that does fleet management, let's say with vans, move to e-cargo bikes? Well, and again, it can't just be because it's like slightly better, right? And because, you've invested all this infrastructure in vans, everything else. Like this gets into like the 10x realm better, where it's like 10x better. Like this is better for the environment. Maybe you'll be able to get incentives for doing this, but also like this is probably a better way to maintain your vehicle fleet. It might be better for the driver. Of course, you can get into smaller places, all these things that we know. And so this is just, again, it's the constant refinement towards what I would call like a 10x better experience that I'm really excited about in some of the innovations. So shout out to Schaeffler and to Moki for doing this. And I think it's just it's something that we should continue to watch. And then on that note, sorry, maybe Julia, I'll get your feedback there. Like, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I was gonna give it whether you asked for it or not. I mean, I think it definitely, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, when you showed the picture of the new chainless drive, the first thing I thought about was maintenance. I mean, how many times have you been on a bike where like the chain pops off or whatever? It's just a giant pain in the ass. And for that matter, trying to make sure it stays greased, everything. It's sometimes, the reason why a conventional bike is actually so hard to ride. So I think, having that innovation of the chainless drive is really, really interesting. And I'm interested to see how that changes the performance of the bike as well, and whether or not that makes higher performance. The other thing I thought about was actually life cycle emissions. With EVs, one of the biggest gripes about them is maybe there's no tailpipe emissions. So you immediately cut car emissions in half. But there's so much material that has to go into making of an electric car that, that almost outweighs the benefit of having no tailpipe emissions. With something like this, the more material components that you start to remove, the lower life cycle emissions it has, and the even better it is for the environment. So not to get too dorky about this, but that was another thing I was thinking about. And then the third thing is just the supply chain. I wonder with all these companies, if you're getting your component parts from too many different suppliers, how that ends up affecting your ability to deliver. And one thing, that could be true for this bike is if you have fewer components, that you might be faster to deliver the product itself. And I think that could be really, really interesting in terms of speed to market and in terms of allowing them to have broader uptake from customers. So yeah, I mean, Moki, however you want to say it. If you want to send a vehicle to James and me to test out, or I don't know if they're coming to Micromobility Europe, but it'd be amazing if they did, because I just love to see the performance of the bike.
Yeah, and shout out to Schaeffler who makes that chainless drive. I'd love to talk to them too, either when we're at Autonomy or of course at Micromobility Europe. I think what they're doing is awesome, and I think a lot more vehicle manufacturers need to see that, and of course I think our audience needs to see that. And then one final point on this, kind of like a subtopic, but I think it revolves around some of the things you were saying, Julie, about maintenance. Shout out to Upway, which is a French online marketplace who basically they refurbish and then resell used bikes. Marketplace has gotten fairly large in Europe, and they're actually coming to America. So there was an announcement this week about them coming to America to help with the secondary market on e-bikes specifically, which of course we know is a very big market. All you have to do is go to Craigslist or, any OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace, and you see a lot. So very cool that they're coming. And again, I think there's this really cool dimension on, as the maintenance costs potentially come down, I also think that not only helps the user, but it helps the resale value, not this huge, you think about buying a used car and like all the componentry and how is it all working? And, of course you can go through and audit that. But I think something like a chainless drive, and then of course someone like Upway coming to America, I think it's a very good sign for what we believe will be a very big secondary market for micromobility vehicles. So cool trends that we're watching and want to hear from you.
Yeah. And it makes me think of a few more things, James, which is, we talk a lot about micromobility as being the unbundling of an automobile and it not being a one-for-one purchase. Like you're not going to replace one car with one micromobility device. And so I think what, opening up a secondhand market does is it allows people to purchase more than one micromobility device. And not to say that everybody needs to own a library or has space to own a library or for that matter, rather has money or funds to buy a few bikes. But I think it does allow for the possibility of repeat customers and for folks having more purpose-built micromobility vehicles. So that's really cool. I'm excited to see what they have on offer in the U.S.
Yep, agreed. Talk to us, Upway.
So James, on a totally different note, New York City is on the verge of passing a law that would ban retailers from selling electric bikes and scooters that are not UL certified. So, James, I know you've been following this quite closely, maybe even wrote an article or two about it around New York City and what they're facing there. I mean, I think it's been quite tragic, honestly, to see the apartment fires that have been happening as a result of both low quality batteries and also folks maybe improperly charging their bikes. So not great that New York City is maybe in some ways over-regulating e-bikes, but at the same time, I think this particular law that would require electric bikes and scooters to be UL certified might actually be a step in the right direction from a regulatory perspective. What do you think?
Yeah. So again, looking at this is a tragedy, seeing these fires, and it's really unfortunate. We know about the demand. We've talked about it. And the really unfortunate thing I've seen as part of this potential ban, which feels, a little bit knee-jerky, but that's what happens with new technologies, is there is no subsidy. So New York State as a whole only has 4 subsidies. If you look at the tracker right now, as a comparison, California has 28, Massachusetts has 10, I think Vermont has 14, right? Just to compare maybe in New England states.
You remembered that? Impressive.
Well, just looking at it, and so where's New York at with this? I mean, come on. I mean, New York City is by far one of the biggest micromobility capitals in the world. New York stops if delivery drivers can't make deliveries on e-bikes, electric scooters, mopeds, things like that. So clearly there are some very big issues here with poor performing batteries and improper charging. Why on earth there isn't a subsidy to go along with the ban so that people can afford UL certified vehicles, which by the way are more expensive for the most part, is beyond me. I mean, this is something that there's plenty of precedent. The New York City can look at all the incentives that are out there and offer something. They could do a scrap incentive, right? So bring in your clunkers and we'll give you a UL certified vehicle, with X amount additional. So, as usual, we've written about this. I've written a post on, no regulation without subsidization last year. And then Horace, just came out with a new post that's up this week actually called Burning Down the House. Where he discussed how, throughout history, we've banned technologies or thought to ban them. And oftentimes what you found is you could use tools like regulation, like subsidies and like engineering, and you could come up with answers that didn't come down as heavy-handed as what looks like what we're seeing in New York. So I'd welcome our viewers to read that, give us your comments. If you're in New York, I think this is about going to city council meetings, to be honest, and talking about why are we, this is a regressive tax, right? We're taking vehicles away from mostly people that can't afford to lose them, that often rely on them for their livelihood, and we're not offering them something else as far as I can tell. And that's regressive, and I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and maybe it's also a good opportunity for some more nuanced policy. So not necessarily more complicated, but more nuanced. I mean, if you just even walk around or ride around New York City, you see a lot of the bikes that are on the road are actually bikes that are not e-bikes. They're not built as e-bikes. They're regular bikes, and they have like a battery or sort of like an add-on that makes them an e-bike. So this could be an opportunity too for New York City to say, not only are we going to put an incentive towards the full purchase of an e-bike, but actually we're also going to incentivize just these add-ons and make those a bit cheaper too. Because, my concern would be that you could give folks a lot of money to be able to buy an e-bike, but it would still be expensive. And if you're able to do this, like get kind of the lower cost product to be even cheaper, but safe, that might actually be a better policy, or that might be a great additional policy to have. Yeah, let's see what happens in New York, and hopefully we have some listeners there who are advocating for better and more nuanced policies. But again, not more complicated, just better and more nuanced.
Yep. Amen. All right, Julia, we have a guest on. I'm gonna call them up here, promote them up, which is very exciting.
James is a ghost.
The audience at Ride On. Wow, James, you have outdone yourself. Ride On audience, I would like to introduce you to James Diekmeyer, who's joining us live from his office with an Abound actually in the background. James is here to talk about the Aventon Abound, which is a fantastic vehicle that I know I told you all last week, I started to ride. And so this is Aventon's first electric cargo bike. And James is the director of customer experience, who's going to tell us a little bit more about it. How you doing, James?
Good. I'm excited. A little cold here for California, but I'm surviving.
That's good. Yeah. We can't. We have to be careful with our global audience to complain about the cold. Julia got some.
I know. Balmy 60.
So James, maybe just a quick minute on your role and what you're releasing here with the Abound.
Yeah. So I've been with Aventon for about a little over a year, working in a little bit different capacities. But my main gig here is customer experience. So that oversees both direct to consumer and B2B customer experience. And so we have our shops that are our customers, and then we have our just our everyday kind of users, and we kind of support that infrastructure. So any kind of issues that might come up with the bikes, any kind of issues that might come up with processing of those orders, that's where a big part of that play as my day to day. I'm also involved in a lot of production of new bicycles, so that customer experience kind of goes a little bit further than you might see a typical other organizations. And so I get to kind of play all around the bikes on my day to day. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my role in a nutshell. Yeah, that's what I got.
Right. Well, I'm going to pull up the vehicle here real quick, just the specs on the vehicle at Ride Review so everyone can see it. I think you've done a lot of, I commend you on a couple of things with this vehicle. One, I think, is the price point. That's pretty clear. The second is the sort of the aesthetic of the bike, which I think Aventon has done something pretty special with all of their bikes. But they feel nice, they look nice. I think they make a presence. I bike with a lot of parents to school every morning, and you hear a lot of people saying, "What is that?" I didn't know Aventon was making a cargo. But yeah, what's just a real quick vision on the cargo? Why'd you get into the space? Maybe why did it take you this long to get into the space? And where do you see the future of the cargo fitting in your portfolio?
Yeah. So we have a thing around here at Aventon. It's kind of our motto, be ride more, be happy, right? And so for a lot of the bikes that we produced first was kind of around that. Your traditional kind of styles with step over, step through, and trying to really promote just use of more bicycles and in the e-bike space. And because cargo bikes are a little bit more special with carrying capacity and kind of geometry, we really wanted to take our time and make sure we entered into the market with something that was of high quality. And so that price point in relation to what the consumer is getting, we really wanted to nail that as good as possible. So that's why we took a little bit of our time to get into the cargo space and grow a little bit and learn a little bit more about e-mobility before producing something like this. So, yeah, that's it.
I feel like there's some of your touches as the director of customer experience on this vehicle. So one of the things I would, again, just when you're a little surprised by when you open the box is you used all paper rope packaging, paper tape. Yeah. Which I'm like an old grouchy person. Like I get the paper straw.
Really? Yeah. Shocking. Yeah.
Sorry, Julia, RMI, all the climate folks in the world. But no, I'm just like, but I thought that was a very interesting touch, and it wasn't something I was expecting. So like the paper rope was like, whoa, that's interesting. That's a statement. So I commend you on that. The other things like the on-the-fly adjustable seat is something I hadn't seen before in a cargo. I thought that was like really clever. And again, something that is like so understated as someone that rides with a cargo with kids, which is sometimes I want to ride higher because it's how you ride a bike, but sometimes you want to ride much lower because of the cargo you have in the back and the safety you want to have being low to the ground. I don't know why no one had I hadn't ever ridden a cargo with an adjustable seat like that before, but that is a very clever innovation. And again, small and subtle, but like, I like it. The cargo bike you've included, which you can actually see in behind you in the vehicle there. Again, a very nice touch that you're just used to buying with add-ons. And at your price point, again, I think it would just be like, wow, that's coming with the vehicle at $99. Cool. The throttle with a torque sensor, again, this is the thing that's constantly debated. But as a parent, with other people riding the vehicle, everyone votes for the throttle. As much as I know, we want to say that's not how you ride a bike. With torque sensor is really good. And again, I have so many of my throttles on my right hand, so putting it on the left was a little bit different for me. I know that's how you held it, but that was interesting. The turning lights, again, customer experience. Been riding it at night. Just something that you just say that's how it should be done. Like I do need turning lights at night when I'm not in a protected lane and I want to let someone know where I'm going. Floorboards, coming factory stock. Again, commend you there. Everyone needs floorboards. The idea that you buy the vehicle and then you have to buy the floorboards is tough. And then something that isn't standard, but I'll also commend you on is I purchased the holding cage, and for of course the kids riding in the back and
the holding cage. That's what it's called.
That's what I call it. I don't know what that is.
It's not right. Corral. Yeah, thank you. I mean, other James. Please help James Rose out here. Like the holding cage does not sound right for children.
Okay,
that's also bad. All right, I'll let you go. Well,
I cage the kids all the time. And so, but the padding on the inside, not being steel, is just like a very subtle touch. That again, good on you. And then the leather strap seating that's strapped, so it's easier to kind of take on and take off, so that you're interchanging. Now I'm pitching it hard, and I don't
make my job easy.
I do, but again, as customer experience, I assume some of your work has got into that, and you feel that. And Julia and I talk about this a lot. Like the last thing we want to see the bike, as fully assembled as possible. I still have to do some assembly, but we want to see things that we think normal people care about and normal people want that aren't bike enthusiasts, e-bike enthusiasts. Exactly. You guys have straddled that line quite nicely, so I'll commend you there. Is it fair to say, and you could, I think this is a turn killer. I don't know why you're spending $4,500 on the e-cargo with the subtle things that I think you've done enough of. So was that the intention? Is that what's on the blackboard behind me here? Do I see this? So $5,000 cargo bikes, or what's the?
Yeah, I think the e-bike space is very competitive, right? And we definitely look at our competitors and kind of see what they've done and trying to learn as fast as possible. But we're not producing bikes to put anyone out of market. We just really want to produce something that is really well thought out and is as accessible as possible, right? Going back to our motto, ride more, be happy. You can't ride more if the accessibility of trying to get that product is so high. And it's really hard to be happy if you're like, man, this is like almost like a car payment to keep this thing in my garage. So I'd say we definitely did look at some of the other competitors, like you mentioned, but not the intention to like, hey, let's try to blow these people out of the water.
Yep.
Because there's a space for everything, right? We do think that the bike though covers a very large space, and quote unquote a hole in the cargo kind of lineup that's available for consumers.
Yep. And maybe I'm asking Julia's question, but how far are we away from me being able to buy this fully assembled? And again, one area I would say is, especially as a parent, I think when I'm riding this with kids, is that the foldable stem, I really want that to be locked in and feel safe. And I don't, I almost want someone to verify that I did it right before, with kids. When does that, do you see that coming as customer experience, like to where I just know?
For sure. Yeah. So in my past life, I worked for a large online bicycle retailer for a pretty long time. And that was a big thing we always talked about. Like, how could we send a bike ready to roll, right? And so we worked really hard to get these very high performance bikes to be built and ready to go within like 3 minutes. Took a lot of that knowledge that we learned at this other company and brought it to Aventon, and which is why we kind of use that paper packaging. The box, the top just lifts off. You don't have to kind of like muscle an 80-pound bicycle out of a deep box, and trying to keep it as minimal as possible. The biggest thing with that is because of our price point, we're trying to make it as accessible as possible. So a little bit of assembly on the front end is able to keep that price point way lower. But it's I wouldn't say it's going to be tomorrow, but we are working to make it as easy as possible. Right, flip that stem up, turn it on, and ready to ride.
I would love one video on that stem, like you did the stem right, like where you have your assembly videos, but I would want it like one very specific, just so I think that's the thing I want peace of mind on, and I don't have that, right? I didn't have that. Julia, over to you. I know we're running out, but
well, James, congratulations, both on the bike and also on your entrance. I mean, that was a 10 out of 10 entrance.
I had to make it amazing, right?
No, it was great. It was great. And honestly, the thing that strikes me the most is you're the third person in a row that we've had on the show that is offering an e-cargo bike at a lower price point. So clearly there's a trend that folks are responding to, whether it's a new demographic that you're reaching out to or trying to broaden the customer base, or just there was a first mover company who now everybody has to copy because otherwise you're not as competitive in the space. But my question is really in offering this e-cargo bike at a lower price point, like, is this almost like a Tesla move? Like, are you reducing your prices because then you're going to increase them later on? Is this about, maybe losing your shirt right now on this, but then later being able to recoup the cost because you've got new Aventon customers? Like, tell me why. What's the strategy?
Yeah. So one of the things that really attracted me to Aventon is that being in the bike space for a long time, I've dealt with a lot of manufacturers and seen a lot of production facilities. And typically what you see is someone rents out a warehouse, right? They contract a factory to build widgets, and then those pieces are transferred wherever and assembled in whatever different kind of condition. The thing that really brought me to Aventon, and I saw something different than the rest of the industry, is that we have that factory, right? That is Aventon owned factory, and it's at our China headquarters, which makes us super agile and is able to kind of keep those costs a lot lower because we're not paying a premium for another factory to produce that. So this bike at that price point is still very competitive and very profitable for the business to be able to continue existing and creating that same lower price point. Us and the management team kind of had to kind of rein the CEO in a little bit. He wanted even cheaper. Like, maybe we should, put it a little bit higher, right?
James, what are you doing? Yeah,
I know, right? We kind of want to stay here still, but I think we struck a good balance of accessibility, like I said, and very, very high quality bicycle that you're getting. So.
Vertical integration, another one of your themes.
I actually was, took the words out of my mouth, James Gross. I was going to say vertical integration and the importance of it.
Yeah. Okay, James, we appreciate you on the show. We appreciate your new vehicle. Hopefully, maybe we'll give one away to the audience here soon at some point, because I know they would love one of those.
I think so. And if the audience doesn't get one, let us know. We're available online and have over 1,000 retailers across the United States to be able to pick one of these guys up.
Cool. Right on, James. Talk to you soon.
Amazing. Thanks, James.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Julia, we're running out of time.
I know. We should start making predictions now as to who's going to offer the next e-cargo bike at an even lower price point. I mean, we've got RadPower, RadRunner, which is at the highest price point we've seen, right? Like $24.99. I'm trying to remember what it was. And then Electric was around the same price as the Aventon, which I always mispronounce that. I always say Aventon. I don't know what it is, being Southern, I guess. But, it's going to be interesting to see who is the next one to drop an e-cargo bike at a lower price point. Maybe Cowboy. Who knows?
Well, and I think a couple of things there. One is, Specialized just came out. Maybe we'll save it for next year.
Oh, yeah.
Specialized is coming out with their cargo bike at $4,700. That long-awaited vehicle that, it's basically going up against the RadRunner 3 at, 2x the cost. And man, I just don't know if that broader consumer audience really cares that it's Specialized. And so I think you're in this really interesting war now where you've got the high-end folks trying to figure out where they're going to play at. And meanwhile, the low end just continues to go lower and lower. But as I mentioned, I've ridden a lot of cargo bikes. I'm really impressed with some of the features for $21.99. And again, speaking to that vertical integration, I think it's part of why they can do that. It's a good topic. And then finally, Julia, on Cowboy, since you mentioned them, Cowboy's out with an announcement that I think speaks directly to you, but some of the challenges that you had with the Cowboy in Los Angeles. And we will have them on the show next week to talk about their new vehicles and some of their new software updates that will actually go back to like your model of the vehicle and some of the, without teasing it too much, some of the amazing power changes I think they've made that have incorporated Julia's feedback.
Yeah. I mean, let's just try to speak things into existence. I mean, starting with talking about incentives and the importance of incentives, then talking about lower price points, and then also thinking about e-bikes as equitable climate action. So, I think we should continue to, not only do this show, obviously we're going to do this show, but just to weigh in with what we want to see in the industry, because some of these things are starting to come to fruition, and it's really, really exciting to be. I won't say on the sidelines. Are we on the sidelines? Coach's box? Where are we? Like, give me the sports metaphor of what we are in the equivalent of.
I don't know if I'm in the arena.
Okay. We're in the arena.
Try to be in the arena. Incentives booming. Check it out. Tell us what you think. Go to ridereview.com and give us your feedback. If you have incentives that we aren't in, very easy to submit. Takes 1 minute. Check out the new Aventon Abound. Hopefully we'll have one to give away soon as well. Leave comments. Tell us what you think of that vehicle. The chainless drives, of course, anyone in New York City, we'd love your feedback on when we're going to start to see subsidies out of New York City. And next week, we'll have Cowboy on to talk about what is a very cool software release, which I think is a whole other part of micromobility. It's not just the hardware, it's the software too. So let's see what they're up to.
Great.
All right, Julia.
Right on.
Right on.
You too.